Did you know that Bruce actually had to chew that entire chocolate cake that Miss Trunchbull forced him to eat? Or that not all scenes where Matilda used her powers required a green screen? For example, in the scene where Matilda reveals her powers to Miss Honey, her teacher, she levitates a water jug, not once, but twice. And, at least in this scene, that famous green screen with people dressed in green holding the object for nobody to see wasn't used. The trick used was much simpler. In fact, a person was placed under the table with a rod attached to the bottom of the jug, gradually lifting it according to the scene's needs. Of course, the rod was digitally removed afterward during the film's post-production. Did you have any idea that this scene was done in such a simple way? I never thought of it! To find out all the behind-the-scenes in Matilda, including about the cake Bruce had to chew all by himself, stick with us until the end of this video. Flying chalk. Another scene that required a lot of creativity and is very memorable in Matilda's film is the scene where Matilda herself simulated with her powers that the late Magnus, Miss Honey's father, was sending a message on the classroom board to Miss Trunchbull. The scene was actually entirely done with magnets. The team placed a magnet inside the chalk, and on the back of the board, there was another person holding a second magnet. They wrote the words that should appear on the board. The person who wrote the words on the board just had to practice a little to write the letters backward so that they could appear correctly on the board. And thus, Agatha would think that the man she did so much harm to was haunting her after all these years. So, the special effects of this scene were actually the same ones we use when we want to move a coin using a magnet under the table. The scene turned out really cool, but they certainly saved some money on this part of the film. Getting hit by chalk erasers. In the sequence of the flying chalk scene, we see one of the most satisfying scenes in the entire film, which is when Matilda literally beats up the villain of the film with the classroom erasers. In fact, during the scene, 2 production assistants held 2 wooden rods with 2 erasers on their ends that were made to look like chalk erasers. And both eraser tips were completely covered in chalk dust, so the scene was full of dust and looked really cool. And, according to the production crew, this was one of the most fun scenes to shoot because the kids love seeing Agatha get all covered in chalk dust. In fact, Pam Ferris, who played Agatha, said that she had a lot of fun doing the scene, and that enthusiasm spread to all the kids, who, contrary to what it seems in the movie, got along very well with the actress. I really didn't expect that, truly. Now, here's a tip for you, movie, cartoon, and series enthusiasts. Subscribe to our channel because we have new videos every day, and you'll definitely enjoy them. Bruce and the cake. One of the most remembered scenes by Matilda fans is surely the one where Miss Trunchbull forces little Bruce to eat a giant chocolate cake all by himself. And it's so cool because in the end, Bruce, with the support of all the children shouting his name, leaves Agatha, the school's dictator, completely enraged. The detail that almost nobody knows is that the scene had to be shot at night after all the actors had already gone home. Jimmy had to repeat the scene over and over again, and for that reason, many nights over 2 weeks were needed to shoot that single scene. And not only did his mouth need to be dirty every night, but he also had to wear the same chocolate-stained shirt. Additionally, he had to simulate in every take that he was really eating the cake, so Jimmy had to practically chew that same cake made by the film's cook almost entirely throughout all the shooting nights. And that disgusted look he had was completely real because he couldn't stand eating cake anymore. So the crew started asking Jimmy between takes to spit out the chewed cake and not swallow it anymore. So, in reality, Bruce, or rather Jimmy, really was a hero for being able to chew that gigantic chocolate cake and make that historic scene. Swung by the braids. Another scene that all fans of the film, including myself, definitely don't forget is when the villain Agatha grabs little Amanda by the braids and throws her far away. To make this whole scene happen, many days of work and several takes were needed, as the scene needed to be rehearsed a few times before the final take and also needed to be shot from various different angles for the final edit. For this, they needed to use a small crane to lift child actress Jacqueline Steiger completely off the ground and with her body supported on a kind of stretcher to keep her small body straight. Moreover, those weren't her real braids. They were actually fake braids tied to a support that was attached to the bottom of Amanda's clothes. In some takes, the braids even came loose and Amanda almost really got thrown into the air. So it took many attempts until the final scene was ready for shooting. The cables were also removed from the final film edit. Jacqueline had a special code for when she felt too dizzy to continue the scene. She had to say jelly beans. And that's going to be our keyword for today. So if you're a fan of Matilda, whether it's the new version or the old one, comment down below, #jellybeans. Indeed, 17 years after the film, the actors, now all adults, reunited, and Amanda, who is actually named Jacqueline, reenacted part of the scene with Agatha. And even the scene with Bruce and the chocolate cake was reenacted by surprise, which made everyone laugh a lot. But this time, Bruce didn't eat the cake. Everyone did. Agatha Trunchbull. Without a doubt, Agatha is one of the most horrible characters both inside and out in any children's movie ever made, and that was no accident. In fact, the film's direction, by Danny DeVito, who played Matilda's father, meticulously planned the best way to make the school principal as repulsive as possible. For this, several makeup details were added to actress Pam Ferris to achieve the perfectly horrendous appearance of the villain. For example, the makeup team added several bags under her eyes, and prosthetics were placed on her nose to make her as frightening as possible when the camera got close to her face. In addition, the team used some techniques to simulate blood vessels on her face and freckles, not to mention her famous mustache. They also made her teeth dark and weird, increasing the fear that viewers might feel when they saw her up close. Explosive TV. When Matilda's family gathers for dinner, everyone has to watch TV according to family tradition, but Matilda prefers to read her Moby Dick book. This irritates her father a lot because he wants all the lights turned off so he can watch his show in peace. So he tears up Matilda's book, which makes her very upset. Then he forces Matilda to watch the silly show they all like, but the problem is that the girl ends up blowing up the TV with her powers. And this explosion scene needed to be done very carefully so that no one would get hurt. After all, it was an explosion scene. Danny DeVito said that the special effects team placed small bombs inside the appliance to carry out a controlled explosion, and when the TV was really blown up, the actors were in the room, but there was no one close to the TV except for the cameraman who was operating the camera. But to prevent him from being hurt during the explosion, as he needed to be very close to the TV, an unbreakable glass shield was placed to protect him from the shards while allowing him to approach the TV, filming everything until the explosion actually happened. Actress Rhea Perlman says that her reaction and her scream at the moment of the explosion were real because even though she knew about the explosion, it certainly scared her a little, making the scene even more real. I love watching this scene every time I watch Matilda. Flying book. In the happy ending of the film, we see that Matilda's parents do the only good thing in their entire lives, and as they are fleeing from the police, they sign adoption papers and allow Matilda and Miss Honey to form a family as mother and daughter. And then we see the two living happily and peacefully, reading the Moby Dick book that Matilda liked so much, and that her father had torn up in the previous scene we talked about, the exploding TV. In the final scene, we see Matilda use her powers one last time to make the book levitate to them so that Miss Honey could read a part of the book to her. This scene was done in a way that closely resembles the one used to levitate the water jug, but still very different. A production assistant lay on a skateboard, the kind you normally use to skate on the street, and this person, who was lying face down on the ground, used a rod to hold the book and bring it to Miss Honey's hand, and to make him move, there was a rope tied to the skateboard that was pulled by another person so that he could make the movement correctly. While this was happening, the actresses had to pretend they weren't seeing anything other than the book, so that it wouldn't be evident during filming how the scene was really done. Of course, the rod used in the scene was also digitally removed in the film's post-production. I honestly find all these behind-the-scenes details of Matilda incredible. How the scenes that marked the childhood of millions of people were made in such a simple way in some cases, using rods to levitate objects. That surprised me a lot. And since we also like to surprise you, we've left 2 incredible videos for you to check out as soon as this video ends. Just click on the one you want to see first and have fun.